Mhm. Welcome back to the No Boring Stories podcast. I, of course, am Alex Street, and I am joined today by the financial queen of the Midwest. I don't know, what is it like? Just crazy
Don't put me
title.
in a Midwest box.
Broke out of that long ago. Look, you're you're soulful CFO. It is Bridgette Boucha in the house. Bridgette, how are you doing?
I'm so great. It's so good to see you, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. I'm just glad that you accepted the invitation. It's one of those, you're one of those people that's like, okay, yeah, I want her to be on. Like I really, really want her to be, not that the other people I don't want to be on, but you invite people to a party, you're like, everyone's gonna be great. You like help the party move, don't you?
Ooh, let's shake it up then. I like that.
Is that what happens? Do you find do people say that about you, that like you show up to like a party and it's like, oh, okay, something just shifted?
I kind of feel like I've always gone by your energy speaks before you do. So I
Mm.
try to walk into a place kind of feeling in a certain level, meeting people where they are, but always wanting to lift them up a little bit.
This is That's amazing. Your energy speaks before you do. That makes me think of my mom, first of all, because this is what I would say about her. She would enter a room and heads would turn. And like,
Mm.
people across the room, it wasn't because of her fancy hat, though sometimes yes, but it was because, yeah, there was a shift. Something just entered the space. Someone.
Mm.
Um, but what's so fascinating about you as I open this up is you're not I would say you're not like me in that I show up in a room like, "What's up, everybody?" Like, "Hey, look at me." Wah, wah. You have this I noticed this the first time that you spoke in front of a group. At Fast Foundations Mastermind, you took the microphone and you spoke, and it certainly wasn't over the top, but you had this, like, gravitas, this, like, demanding attention, uh, aspect to you. Is that what that was? Is it your energy? Is it something that you bring that just when you show up, when you stand up, we wanna listen?
Gosh, I hope so. I think that's really interesting. And I think that's evolving all the time. I remember the exact moment that you're speaking of. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that you get up there and you're kind of like shaking a little bit inside. However, you hope that you can project out in a way that's inviting, relatable, but also with some conviction
Mhm.
because the room that you're speaking of, we were getting up and kind of sharing a little bit about who we were as entrepreneurs or who we thought we were at that time. Let's be honest.
Yes, come on.
And so I appreciate that. I do remember you sharing that with me, and it meant the world to me. And I know we both had similar transformative experiences throughout that time that we spent in that first room with those entrepreneurs. And it brought us here, which I think is the coolest full circle kind of
Mhm.
moment about not just unveiling your story, but being able to translate it into a way that is meaningful to the ears of the listeners.
Yeah. Well, that's the magic, isn't it? Is not just speaking, but speaking for a purpose and speaking with clarity, speaking that's the power of words. This is what I was just saying this to somebody. She was like, I've always loved movement. She's a Pilates instructor. I was like, you say that and shrug your shoulders, but I would never say that. Like, it's like you,
Whatever. I've seen
Bridget.
your dance moves.
Okay, great. I love movement, no doubt. But that's not like my passion, you know? I
Right.
think if I could say I love performing or I love speaking, and somebody else would be like, "What do you mean speaking?" I was like, "No, no, no, the power that words have, the power of performing, the power of this to change something about someone." But I feel like, yes, you just drew that out of me right now, so well done there, but I think that there's something else. There's something you would even probably say something different about that, of like, what's the thing that
Mm,
you, like, love seeing happen or that you
mm.
use almost as your tool to make an
Yeah.
impact in this world?
Ooh, I love this so much. We all, for all the listeners out there that are, whether an entrepreneur or not, like we all have a modality with which we serve. You know, we may be trying to create some sort of transformation or help somebody reduce a learning curve, whatever it is. But like
Hmm.
to me, it's these click moments. It's these really empowering moments that I like to see people step into their power. My modality is money, right? I'm a
Yeah.
CFO. My modality is money. I want to simplify it for you. I want to change the conversation from a place of like fear and shame to potential and possibility. And so
Hmm.
I like those moments when I can start to see that shift. Those are what I live for as an educator, as somebody who lives to inspire and empower about a resource that can kind of get like a little bit of a reputation, depending on how we grew up, you know, around these
Yeah.
stories around money. So those are my favorite moments, you know. Like I always
Hmm.
say, money's the modality with which I serve, but it doesn't mean that all of the other parts of me don't come into play. And I see that in you. And I
Yeah.
see that in a lot of people that we might lead with this modality, but we end up bringing so much more of the experience because we're no longer hiding parts of ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We're actually unveiling the true essence, the fullest expression of who we are. And that comes through no matter what your modality is, which I
Mm.
think is the coolest part about this chapter in a lot of our lives is we're kind of getting rid of some of that stuff that we've been holding on to too long.
Oh, that is so good. I Yeah, as you say that, of course, yeah. I start with story. I'll start with, hey, let's dive into your story. But of course, as soon as we do that and do that honestly, it unpacks all kinds of stuff. Now we're talking about purpose. Now we're talking about your fear. Why are you not sharing this? What's really behind this? It's not just clarity. There's actually some story back there that makes you believe that you're not good enough to speak up and do something that's impactful and important. Um, yeah, we open up a whole box of stored away stuff as soon as we just open the door. And so for you, you might show up and say, "I love money," and we're like, "Of course, we all love money." Are you kidding me? You're like, "No, no, no. I love what money can do." We're like, "I love what money can do as well. Yeah, great. It can get me food. It can do." You're like, "No, no, no. I love that when we tap into money and understand what money story you have in your life, what that can do to set you free."
Mm.
Is that right?
Absolutely. You know,
Mm,
it's interesting because how you have your money story and how you bring it into your business. So I support business owners, so we talk mostly about the operations of the business and how to use it as a tool, but it's like it really is part of your entire ability. It's one of the main resources beyond time that you have to be able
yeah,
to reach these emotions, the feelings of success that you want, the good that you want to do in the world, right? We can
yeah,
all donate our time, and that's a very valuable, commendable way to contribute to society.
mhm,
However, money's renewable, time's not. So you can generate more money, you can do more good in the world.
wow, with the time that you have.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it amplifies the time that you have,
Yeah.
actually. That time that you're
Yeah.
giving. Oh, boy, okay, this is look, we could go into this, which is great, but I wanna know why. I wanna know why you get to this point. Who is the person that gets to the point where you show up in this way as you do, helping people in such wildly transformative ways in their
Hmm.
individual lives and the businesses that they're running on such an incredible scale the way that you are? Uh, when we'll just open this you kind of gave your definition of what you do. What does that look like? Like what's the main work that you're actually bringing to the world right now? And how do you see that impacting the people that you're working with? If we haven't already defined that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I built my entire career on numbers. I was just managing other people's money. I was working in corporate America, and it was a fantastic path. It served me very well for over 15 years. And then there was something inside of me that felt unlived. And I decided that that wasn't the path that was going to carry me through to reach whatever was missing, whatever I
Hmm.
felt was missing. And so where Alex and I met was in a mastermind. It was my first mastermind. I believe it was your first mastermind, right? I mean,
It was. And I'm going to
yeah.
time out here just for a second
Mm.
because here's the thing, Bridget. I just asked you, what do you do now? And you went, I love this because you're like, look, this is what I've been doing. This is who I've been. And we'll get there
Mm,
and I'll guide you there. And that's fine
okay.
because I do want to hear that. But Like who are you just right now, just as you show
Okay.
up on this podcast right now? Who who are you now?
Mm, okay. I am a CFO for entrepreneurs.
There we go.
So I have a team member and we support all the money things for scaling business owners.
And when that happens with scaling business owners, you help them support them with all their money things. That
Mhm.
helps them then feel what?
Like they have a sustainable business model. It's
Ew.
interesting. People go into start a business because they have a passion and they're really excited about the gifts that they're delivering to the world. And they're flying and their marketing may
Mhm,
be working, but
mhm,
they're flying blind.
mm.
And so we give them a map to be able to help them make financial decisions. And it feels really good for somebody that's creative to feel like there's a structure in place because in structure, you can find freedom.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Structure allows for the spirit to move. Come on.
Hmm.
This is it. So freedom. So you said,
Hmm.
like we give them this, we give them a handle on that, we give them a map, but then I think you just came down to the last word there. We give them a structure so that they can have freedom. Is that it? Is it when, when you're helping this scaling business owner, ultimately you're dealing with money, talking about their resources, talking about where they're putting it, how they're using it. Would they come out at the end and say, "Oh my goodness, I feel like I have freedom"? Is that it?
Yeah. So in structure, I find freedom actually came from one of my clients. She
Ha.
said that in one of our last sessions. And it really dawned on me, your clients will give you the feedback of the emotion and the transformation that you create. You might feel like you know it, but when you hear it from their own words, it really
Mhm.
resonates a lot deeper. So that's where I find the most value in it because you think about your well being, your self care,
Mhm.
managing your money is a form of self care. And all that means is, by definition, if you're not managing your money and it's causing you to lose sleep at night and you have some anxiety around it or you have some stressors, well, then you're not actively managing it. And as a result of that, your well being can suffer. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of emotional pieces tied to money and it's not going anywhere, right? It's a resource that we need to live.
Yeah.
So it's best to start that working on that relationship now.
So, okay, so now we get to go back in the story here. If there's something here
Hmm.
about what you do now and how you show up right now, Bridget, that is ultimately leading towards this sense of peace, of freedom, sounds like of um what were the words you said earlier? But potential and
Yeah, potential and possibility instead of
yeah.
fear and shame.
Mm.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you're giving us the transformation right there. It's so
Hmm.
easy. But so if that's kind of where we are, and then you were starting to tell this story, you were starting to talk about a mastermind, and you told us that you were in finances for 15 years. Um, I I think that's the middle part of the story. Where does it begin? Where does this idea of freedom, of potential and possibility for you begin? Um, was it growing up? Was it like what was instilled in you around whether it's around money specifically or kind of a way of life?
Hmm.
What shows up for you early on?
Yeah, I grew up in small town northern Minnesota, and I knew that I wasn't going to stay there. I don't know what it was inside me, but there was a curiosity, basically, that I wanted to create some opportunity for myself. I wanted to have choices. I wanted to have options.
Mhm.
And all I ever heard was in order to create that life for yourself, you had to create a path out. And for me, that meant an education, right?
Mhm.
And a
Mhm.
stable job. Like that was the traditional path, that was what was laid out in front of me. So that's where it really started from. I thought, oh, I've got to get my education, I've got to get my career going, I've got to make some money so that I can have the
Yeah.
choices to live wherever I want, to do whatever I want. There's
Were
nothing
there
wrong with a
people that you
small
were
town.
watching that did that? Like, was there like just like
No.
grandma did or whatever? No, it's just
No.
this is just this story that's told by the elders around the fire. Like, is that it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had people, very responsible, working, hardworking people in my family. Nobody really moved out of state. There
Mhm.
wasn't a lot of that if they even, went to college and pursued that path. So that's the interesting part about it for me is I think I was driven enough at a young age just based on the environment that I was in and just what that meant was there was kind of an unpredictability because I was part of I was a product of divorce at a very young age. So I was going back and forth between two very different households, which
Right.
gave me a level of unpredictability. And I thought, how do I even this out? Like, how do I take control? How do I take ownership of this? And what that looked like for me was just a path that I could own,
Yeah.
that would give me choices. And for me, that's where it started. There was not somebody, honestly, that I can
Yeah.
remember anyway, that was like, I'm going to do what he or she did.
Hmm.
It really, really was something within. And I think, some sort of divine plan for that.
Okay, go into it. Open that up wherever you want to. This is I love the idea of instability and like so there's almost like but you said it wasn't that you were looking for like stability. It wasn't the opposite of what you had. You just wanted the ability to have choice,
Mhm,
just to choose.
mhm,
Um just think of how many people are relating to that story right now, hearing that and going like, yeah, that was my like of course as a kid, you don't have many choices. If the choice is do you want blueberry or strawberry yogurt, then like that's enough for the day. Like, but everything else,
mhm.
you don't have. That's the thing. When kids have to grow up too fast, it's when they start to have to make
Mhm,
decisions. And here you are, kind of not in control of where you are at any given moment. It sounds like,
mhm.
and the thing that you crave most is I'm gonna create my own path.
Yeah, when you're young and you start to realize that your behavior matters and what gets you gold stars makes you feel good, and so you do
Yeah.
more of that. And I kind of recognized early on that academics were something that I enjoyed, and math
Mm,
being one of them. And so I just, you keep doing the things that make you feel good. And when people tell you that that's the path and they see a lot of potential in you, I think you just go, how far can I go? Just because the path isn't laid out for me, what would happen if I just kept going? What if I didn't
mhm.
follow somebody else's path? And I think that's where it kind of started. And I've always been a little bit of a pendulum swinger, a little bit of a gold star chaser, a little bit of that. So I just went for it.
And so, you know, went for it means you just decided to go all in on accounting?
Yeah.
On what? Like,
Yeah. It was like, okay, so here's what the plan would be if you wanted to go ahead and be quote unquote successful. So there's a traditional term of success that kind of was implied back in that time, at least in my world, that was
mhm,
like, this is what it looked like. So I went all in on the 4-year accounting degree. I went all in on the corporate job, went all in on relocating for the corporate job, just doing all the right things, getting
did
my
that
CPA
feel like you
license.
were doing like, again, come back to choices. Did that feel like
Hmm.
you were in control of those choices? You're like, "Yeah, good. I accomplished that. Celebrate that 4-year degree. Wow, I got the job.
Yeah.
Celebrate." Like, did that feel like that
Um,
was your own movement?
It did during the time. Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely did. I was really excited about the opportunities that were coming, and I
Mhm.
realized that I was helping create those opportunities, and I just wanted more and more and more. And as I got on that, like I call my path the moving walkway, and it just kind of kept
Huh.
rapidly picking up speed. And I kept doing the things and reaching the next milestone. I did this in career. I did this in running. Like
Yeah.
all kinds. How you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So you start to see how this behavior happens. You like the feeling of the outcome, and then you just keep doing it.
It's a
And
gold star
I
again.
did love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting, as you said, yeah, back then, that's how I felt. I think that's so
Hmm.
many of our so like, reserve
Hmm.
judgment on your past self, right? Like have
Hmm.
grace for where you were because
Hmm.
yeah, there was this sense of like, this is what I've been working towards. I'm here. This is
Hmm.
great. This is what I want to do. I remember saying, I'm going to be a youth pastor for life. This is the way, baby.
Yeah.
And very quickly I realized, well, this isn't the way.
Mhm,
And so then
mhm.
you shift, but at some point you are all in, as you say, and then, well, Tuesday happens, and we don't
Yep.
know when it's going to happen or what's going to happen, but
Mhm,
something shifts along the way to kind of wake you up. Maybe
mhm.
is it an awakening? What was it for you? What was it? A conversation? What shifted things to make you realize that's not actually what my soul was
Yeah, it's really
yearning
funny
for?
that you say that because, it was about 6 years ago that or longer that happened for me, and I didn't have language for it at the time. So when you
Mm,
say it now, it's like I don't know that it was probably an awakening, it was a tapping, it was an
yeah.
an unsettled feeling, but I didn't know how to describe it at the time because I hadn't really done a whole lot of inner work or self discovery because I just knew myself as this person that was on this path, and
Yeah.
I couldn't quite shed some of the layers that I needed to really see myself. And so there was a point, you said it, you nailed it. It's like you do all these things, you get these accolades and you reach these milestones and you do feel good. So it's not a confusion at all when you're on the journey.
Yeah.
Where it gets really confusing is when you realize it's no longer what you thought it was or it's no longer what you want. And then you start to say, well, man, I went all in on this. How do I even trust myself to take the next step if I thought this was what I wanted?
Hmm.
And now I come to find out that it really isn't. Where the hell do I go from here?
Hmm.
And so there was a period of about a year where that awakening, as you call it, like was happening. I was
Hmm.
confused. I wasn't sure why I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to. I wasn't sure why my patience was getting a little thinner, why I felt frustrated instead of excited sometimes going into an office and being, feeling like you're being all the things to all people, but yet inside you're just feeling kind of dark.
And just for context, the position that you're holding at this time over this year of like discomfort and confusion, um, where are you? What are you doing?
I was a CFO here in Atlanta, so for a
Right.
company here in Atlanta, in a couple of different financial positions. But yeah, that was the time frame. Um,
Right. So we're
that's
like
what
at the top
top.
and
Yep.
then face this like, what's going on here? This doesn't
Hmm.
feel right anymore. But you said, I really want to lean into this for a minute here and just see, um, I don't know what light we can bring to this because saying that you didn't have the language for it then, um, I just want to be conscious that there's somebody there might somebody listening to this right now that is right now in your then. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
they are where you were and are sensing either a shift is coming or they're in that state of confusion and yeah, may not know how to identify that or language to put to what things. Can
Hmm.
you, as you look back now, um, help us understand, like, whether it's a moment that you're like, oh, this was it. It was when I was, driving down this street at this time and I saw this person happy and I knew that I would never feel like, you know what I mean? Like, what comes
Hmm.
to mind that helped you, or you look back now and you're like, oh, that thing, that moment, I would now define as this.
Yeah, I would say if anybody's listening, kind of going, "Am I there?
Hmm.
I'm not sure." Your body will tell you. There are some things in your body, whether it's you've heard gut reaction, or you can tell that when you're some things that you used to enjoy or you used to get energy from now become something that drains energy from you.
Oh,
And so I started to notice the emotions and the feelings first. As far as like an actual moment, I think there was a couple, I resigned 3 different times. So, like, if anybody's out there saying, "Oh, she had an aha moment and then she was just done." It's like, no, I mean, I am supposed to be the most risk averse person. I'm the fiduciary of a company, remind you, in charge of
uh-huh.
all the numbers. Like, it's not like I am so reckless, right? So I did listen to this gut feeling in my body 3 different times. I resigned 3 different times before it stuck. So it may be, I mean, but that was what I needed. That was the time that was right for me. So if you start to feel these things in your body and you start to find drain and leakage of your energy versus something that lights you up and fills you up, those are signs. But you'll see in your reaction. Because
Mm,
for me, if I'm putting myself in an environment, and this goes for anybody in any situation, a relationship, a career, if I
yeah.
put myself in an environment where I'm like, I don't like myself in that environment, or I don't like myself around that person, or I don't like the way that I feel, or the things that I say, like this is not my highest self. Like I actually not feeling like this is the frequency I want to operate at. That is a true tell sign, and you're not
Mm,
going to last there long, honestly. Whatever that is in a relationship or a career, because it's going to come out, like it's going to fall out somehow,
yeah.
because the other person or the people are going to feel it as well. So it started with me with an emotion, then it turned into the reactions, and then it got to the point where I almost couldn't unsee it. Like, I almost felt like I am not doing this company justice by operating at this frequency because I'm no longer enjoying it. And
Mm.
somehow, some way, the bottom's going to fall out. And I'd rather take control of that and honor the company and the people that were employing me. I gave them a 4-month resignation.
The first time or the third time?
The first time was 4 months. The second time was they talked me into paying, and then the third time was 6 months. Those are two different companies. But I mean, I share this, and we share this, like, whoever's listening, because it's not a perfect journey. It's just
Yeah.
yours. Like, it's
Mm.
nothing. It's not always just this textbook. It's not about living through the memes of these quotables. Real life can get kind of messy, but hell, it's your mess. So embrace it, all the pieces of it. And that's why we're sharing it from such a raw place.
Yeah. I love that even as you say that, you're like, it's not perfect. It's not the quotable tiles. You gave us like 3 perfect quotable like tweetable things there. Like, it's not perfect. It's yours. It's um and what was fascinating about what you were just saying there about, the things to look out for, right? That's what I was asking is like for somebody in that position, what are they looking out for? And you gave some really clear specifics and I think it all kind of spoke to this point that you mentioned right at the beginning, which was your energy speaks before you do. And so there's something about, the energy as you show up into a room, like they're going to notice, you're going to notice anything, but it's recognized feeling that. And those are going to be the signs that say something needs to shift.
Mhm, mhm,
So as you explored that, again, you said 6 years ago,
mhm.
and you start to look at this and you're like, I'm resigning. What were you resigning to? That first time that you handed that letter, was that nerve wracking?
Oh yeah, it was tear filled. I felt very guilty, honestly, because
Right.
at that time I had not let myself get to the point where they necessarily noticed. It was very internalized.
Hmm.
So you feel bad because they're like, but you're doing a great job, but you handle all these things, but your team loves you. Or you start to hear all this stuff outside and you're like, that's great, but something inside me is disconnected. So yeah, it was very emotional for me the first time. It got easier as I went on.
Just take some practice. uh, so the third time you're like, look, I'm out. 6 months. See you later. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and so I would love for you to fill in the story here, right? Because from there, and you were teasing with this moment at the mastermind,
Hmm.
which was what 2.5 years ago, I guess, and
Hmm.
uh, something happens along the way or along that journey. Just kind of fill in the story here of how this transformation occurred, this tipping point that shifted you to become who you are now and how you're showing up now.
Yeah, there was a turning point, and it was when I really started to realize that what I left corporate for and what I actually was living was very different. And what I mean by that is I was playing really small when I left corporate, and it wasn't really a sustainable plan. I didn't feel good about myself. I had doubts about how far I could go. I
Mm.
wasn't sure about my business model. I just didn't have anybody around me like you. It's interesting, the circle. This is why you're so good at what you do. Like you said, was there anybody around you growing up that emulated this type of journey? And I said,
Uh-huh.
no, there wasn't. And here I find myself later as an adult, as a corporate dropout, if you will, sitting in that same space of kind of going like, this must be what people do because I don't know. Nobody's showing me any different. It's very isolating when you're an entrepreneur. So
Mm.
the turning point that you're talking about is where I invested in myself for the first time because I just knew I needed to bite the bullet. I knew I needed to, it was expensive. The ticket price was steep for me at the time. And I just knew that I needed skin in the game and I needed to get in the space with people that were thinking bigger, that were not like, settling for the status quo, that were going to show me what was possible. But what I went in with was thinking I was going to be this fractional corporate CFO, and that was what I was going to do. I was just going to do it at a bigger scale. Well, I got news for anybody listening. If you leave a company and you go then try to do the same thing just without a boss, you're going to find that same misalignment. Like you
Mm.
haven't changed enough in your life. And that's what the mastermind taught me is, wow, there's a different way to serve people. There's a different way to connect. There's a whole bunch of passion filled in these communities and these rooms of people that are going to stretch you. And if you go in with an open mind, you're likely going to come out with something different than you thought you would. And that's
Yeah.
the sign in my eyes of a good mastermind. So
I
it was very impactful.
I love there's this piece about you just said, you're leaving something so that you can do the same thing without a boss. John Acuff, one of my favorite authors, he says, people go into entrepreneurship because they don't want a boss. And what they realize is that now you've got 150 bosses because
Yeah.
every one of your clients is now your boss. You work for them.
Mhm.
It's just you got to be careful of that. And of course, we've recognized that, we've realized that. And you have to manage yourself now. And it's a whole different journey. But to get into the room for you, that was about, yes, you made a decision internally, individually. This seems like the right space for me to get into
You know
because
what?
what?
This is another full circle thing. This is why I love talking to you. If you haven't talked to Alex, you need to go talk to him because this is what happens in real life sessions, right? So when
Yeah.
I was thinking about like resigning 3 times, I also did this mastermind 3 times. And each one had a different chapter, had a different phase. I've never said this out loud. I've never thought about it this way. But this is why conversations like this are so powerful as you unpack and you discover really the pieces that got you here and you honor them as they should. So I did the mastermind. The first one I would just describe as, holy shit, what am I doing? Do I belong here? All these people seem to know what they're doing.
Lots
That's
of
where I met
tears.
you, Alex. A lot of just kind of eye opening experience. Definitely a lot of tears, right?
Hmm.
The second round, I stepped into my power. The pandemic hit. I was able to step in as an advisor for all of the paperwork and different things that needed to be done. Nobody knew what the hell they were doing, right? World shutdown. Was voted like MVP, right? So I went
Yeah.
from like the scared little girl who does belong here to stepping into my power because there was an opportunity there and I had been able to build up enough confidence to use my voice and to use my skill set because I knew I could help people. I was really scared for these people that didn't know, we were all scared.
I
That
didn't
was a
know that
crazy time.
you got MVP in
Yeah,
that
I
group, in that
did.
round. That's amazing. Okay.
And then the next round was the virtual one. And
Yep.
that one was a little bit different where I started, so each one had a season, had a phase that were very critical to my journey. I could skip none of them and be where I am, right? Everything is kind of like builds off of the one prior.
Mm.
And I think that that's really important to acknowledge is that like, just because a container lasts or a session or a coaching or mentorship program lasts 4 weeks or 12 weeks or 4 months doesn't necessarily mean that that is the end of your journey,
Hmm.
right? You have to
Hmm.
then take it and say, where am I now? Did I finish what I started? Do I need more? Have I made some sort of directional change? Um, and I think that takes a lot too. I remember saying that when I reinvest, I'm like, nope, didn't finish what I started.
Yeah.
Just getting started. Got to go again.
That is, it's like you're repeating back to me my journey, which is just so fascinating. Again, right? This just keeps opening up for us. We just keep going. Are you kidding me? We're on the same path, and it's because yeah. So we end up in that same first one, and for me, that was like we took money out of savings to make that happen. We didn't know what it was. First mastermind, first taste of entrepreneurship at all. Get in that room, first time I ever felt like I really did not belong in this space. And like I snuck into the corner. Like I went small, which is clearly not me. Um, and then whatever happened through that sort of exploration, I took the next round off, which you entered into, and I guess that's where you end up getting voted most valuable for the group. Then I came back into what would have been your third round was my second round, and I experienced that same thing that you just said. And I showed up and it was like, okay, well, I understand more of what I'm doing. I understand more of who I am. I'm going to be completely fearless, ask every question I have, share all my feelings. And guess what? At the end, I got voted the MVP.
Oh my gosh, I know you can't see me, but I'm cheering over here because I am so like it is. Everybody's kind of a mirror, right? And it's so true. I completely we have a parallel experience in
Hmm.
our own way, in our own modality. And I think it's just a power. It's a powerful truth and a testament to what can happen
Mm.
when you surround yourself with the right people and you start to break away some of the limiting beliefs that you have for yourself and take massive action. That's literally what Alex and I both did in our own modality. And
Mhm.
here we are talking about it in such a way that you probably couldn't have convinced either one of us on the first day that we met, that a couple years later we'd be sitting here having a conversation like this, really owning our journey and being
Yeah.
able to share it. It's beautiful. I love it.
I love even your again, how you said you showed up in that second round was helping, like, with the finances and that sort of like the whatever however you could help in that scary time of pandemic life and what's life gonna
Mhm.
look like. Talk about modality, you used what you had. And again, in my second round, what happened, I think the reason that there was value, that people felt value from my presence was because what was I doing? I was saying, "Hey, let's get on a call and let's talk through your story." And I just brought what I had. And doing that in such a way, it's not that mine was more valuable than anybody else's gift or anything like that. It was just something about that was the right way and helped. Again, this is my story, my journey, right? And what I noticed in that was when I show up with what I've got, um, that's when the biggest impact is made.
Oh, 100%.
This is what I want to make sure we do because I know that podcasts and especially chats between friends on podcasts, they can seem like it's an A and B conversation. But of course, we're doing this so that people listening can find themselves in this journey as well. And I think, the way that you just wrapped it up in saying, like, look, when you're willing to get into the room, when you make a step like that, you focus on that journey and you open up to all of the growth that's supposed to happen there. That's when, yeah, you find yourself a year and a half later talking about things you never thought would happen. And I just want to make sure that people hear that this
Mhm.
isn't just about me and Bridget right now. This is
Mhm.
about you and what our story can teach, I guess. Right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's that whole possibility, that potential kind of thing. I would imagine anybody that's out there listening has felt stuck or trapped or voluntarily or involuntarily, found themselves in a position where they've needed to make a decision that could be a little life changing and whatever that means. And these are all things. These are universal. Like these
Mm,
fears, these ability to bet on yourself, whether it's time or money, um, to step into the fear and have a conversation with somebody that you might think has it all figured out, but really was right where you are at some point, like we're
yeah.
still on the journey.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that that does exactly what you said and just kind of shows that it's a journey and it's not just isolated to me or Alex.
Yeah. So where does this go for you going forward? Where do you see this story heading, future chapters? And you get
Mhm.
to write it. You kind of get to make this up as you go. So best guess or maybe more educated than that, where do you see this going?
Yeah, it's fun to be able to have the pen, like you said, like
Yeah.
you get to write it. It's so cool, and I know that's such a like cliche thing, but like when you do take actions that allow you to create the choices and the opportunities for yourself, it's empowering, right? So I've started this. I've been serving entrepreneurs, building it, clarifying who I work with, how I serve is important as who I serve. So I tend to work with people that are on a self discovery journey that are business
Hmm.
owners. So I see that growing. I see that growing tremendously. It's a very relationships type business. Money, it's money.
Hmm.
People um, associate stories with that. It's like giving me your medical history, or sometimes people would prefer to give me their medical history versus their actual money story. And I really noticed that I can make the most impact when I work with entrepreneurs who are pretty heart centered, creative, mission driven, all of that. So I see that growing. I also see a lot of this journey being shared on stages, on podcasts, because I know I'm not alone, and I know that we're all better that when we share. I know there's been a lot of voices and a lot of speeches and different things that have helped me.
Hmm.
I'm still unpacking a lot of my journey with my heritage, with my family, with my upbringing, and I tend to want to share from that space because it's really important to me that if anybody had, you feel like you kind of spin your wheels, but you do it really in the right amount of time for you.
Yeah.
But I know that when people are feeling stuck and making decisions like this, I want to be able to give them a place to go. So there's speeches, there's podcasts, there's a book in me that's coming soon.
Wow. The trailer. We just saw the the big
Mhm.
Universal Studios trailer for Bridget the Future. So if somebody is feeling right now like somebody else has the pen in their hands in their life. They don't have the choices. They don't feel like they're making the choices. They feel that stuckness, that trapped, um, afraid, and they want, obviously, they want this potential, this possibility, this freedom that you not only have described for us through your story, through this journey of like getting to exactly where you wanted and then feeling this void and wondering what it is, this confusion, and then choosing step after step and saying, nope, not finished yet, not finished yet, not finished yet, to get to the point where you're at now, obviously knowing you're not finished yet, but freely going forward with bigger vision than ever before. They are sitting there feeling, I find myself here and I want to feel what she's feeling. How are they going to connect with you? How are they going to start that conversation?
Oh, yeah, how are they gonna connect with me? It's I show up most authentically, on Instagram. I mean,
Right.
that's really where I share. That's where I'm the most authentic. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but there might be some left cuss words when I'm on LinkedIn. But I have a deep desire. There's something that is a core value of mine, is it's connection. And I love to be able to connect with people as they're on different parts of their journey. So Instagram is the best way for me. I honestly believe that if we're out there to actually share our stories, then there is a need to be able to understand and help people feel seen where they are.
Hmm.
And the way to do that to me is to be able to connect through either words or messaging or
Yeah.
engagement of some sort.
And again, to come back to the very beginning of this, I think that you have that ability, in a really, beyond understanding, a place beyond understanding, that you can do that very quickly with people. You see them, you hear them, and you want to, it's very evident what you care most about is the person. Um, and so I thank you for what you do. I thank you for sharing your story, the work that we've done together, and so much for the back and forth that we have here where it just it just flows and it just feels like, yes, of course we're in this together. And what you brought to, this audience today, I am incredibly grateful for. I'm sure they will be as well. And I just want to thank you for your time here today.
Thank you, Alex. You are a true gem. I appreciate it.